The Frontside 360 no comply. This is a fun little no comply trick, which is relatively easy once you get the hang of it, and it can look pretty cool whether you're just cruising around or throwing it in the middle of a line. Some tricks you should have down before learning this one are a frontside 180, because the way you sort of use your shoulders to turn your body is similar, a frontside shove it, because the way your back foot pushes the board around is slightly similar as well, and a frontside 180 no comply, which is basically the slightly easier version of this trick. So the main parts to this trick are pressing down and scooping the board around frontside with your back foot, while your front foot comes off the board and to the ground for a second, and then jumping off of that foot and continuing through with the rotation in order to land forward. For the foot positioning of this trick, I put my front foot in the middle of the board, a little up towards the bolts and kind of angled forward, but your front foot position isn't too important, it just needs to be in a place where it can come off the board quickly. And for my back foot, which is the most important part, I have it down away from the edge of the tail, more towards the bolts and a little dug into that heel side pocket. So I know that I already mentioned it before, but I really want to emphasize that you should really have your frontside 180 no complies down, because there are a few things that you should be familiar with. The first one is being able to step off the side of the board pretty quickly with your front foot. And the next part is being able to do that while almost simultaneously pushing down on your tail, because this trick basically starts off as a quick combination of both of those and then scooping with your back foot. So basically, to start things off and to start getting the feel of this, you just want to try over-rotating a few 180 no complies. I would just suggest trying this a few times and seeing how far you can get the rotation. So unfortunately, this isn't all there is to the trick. If you go straight into trying the full 360, you'll probably notice a few things. Mainly that the board doesn't tend to stay with you, or it can flip over, or it doesn't get fully rotated. So one of the reasons for these are you need to make sure that when you step off and you press down with your back foot, you're not actually popping the tail. Doing this is what's going to cause the board to pop up a little too high, and it's not going to stay under your feet. The correct motion that you're looking for here is really digging in with your back foot into that pocket to kind of scoop the board around. You're still technically popping the board, but you should mainly be focused on the feeling of pushing the board around with your back foot. And also with your back foot, one of the main things you want to be focused on is basically keeping it touching the board the entire time to guide it around. Keeping your foot on top of the board like this and pushing it through the whole way is going to be the thing that keeps it from flipping over and helps the board stay closer to you without flying away. So I would actually recommend trying this while standing still and really focusing on your back foot a few times. And then you can start trying a few while rolling, but not worrying too much about jumping back on the board. Just focus on the rotation and keeping the board under control with your back foot. So at this point, if you have all that down, I would say you can just start trying it. And also, if you notice that you're not getting a good enough rotation, well, this is where focusing on your shoulders comes in handy. Now, you don't need to wind up and unwind too hard, but you can definitely see how after the first 180 rotation, you need to keep following through with your shoulders in order to complete the rotation. So if you have your 180s down, this shouldn't be too much of a problem. And actually, this trick feels a lot like when you do those 180s and land on your back truck and then pivot the rest of the 360, because odds are when you're doing this trick, you're not going to do the full 360 in the air. You'll probably end up doing more of a 270 and then pivoting the rest. So the last thing that tends to go wrong while doing this trick is that by the time you complete the 360, the board ends up a little bit behind you. And I'm not exactly sure why it helps, but the way that I got over this was just by really focusing on my foot that steps off. Once you really have that scooping motion down with your back foot and you don't have to focus on it as much, I would say shift your attention to the foot that steps off and make sure that when you jump off that foot again, you're going just slightly backwards in order to land on the board. And then hopefully, if you put all these things together, you should be able to scoop this trick all the way around. So as a quick recap, make sure that you really have your frontside 180 no complies down. Get your back foot sort of in that pocket and make sure that you're not popping straight down, but you're more scooping. You can start off while standing still and just trying to over-rotate a 180 no comply, and then slowly work your way up while really focusing on that back foot. You want to make sure that you're scooping it fast and pretty much keeping it touching the board the entire time. I think that pretty much the faster you scoop this with your back foot, the easier it'll be. And then finally, focus on using your shoulders, jumping off your front foot, and then following through and pivoting a little bit if you have to. So I hope that this video helped you if you were trying to learn these. And even if you weren't, I would suggest giving them a try because they're actually really fun. I'm not really into doing the no comply type tricks myself, but this one in particular is one that I really enjoy. So if you have any tricks in particular that you'd like to see a how-to for, let me know in the comments, and if I can do it, then I'll do it. As always, I'd like to thank my Patreon pledgers for supporting me and what I do. And I'd like to thank you for watching, and you can like and subscribe if you want.